Good evening. Happy Advent. I'm going to be smoking this Carrillo cabinet. You know, I don't know anything about this cigar. It was a gift. I haven't even looked it up online. I'm just going to cut it and enjoy it. Got my trusty little plug knife. Alright, here we go. You know what else I have this trusty? This bad boy right here. Just love this thing. Boom. The perfect pipe smoker's tool when smoking a cigar. One of the great benefits of having a cigar holder is that you can smoke the thing all the way down to the very nub of the nub. Alright, let's get this label off and do this thing. So today, I'm going to do a relatively long live show. It's late in the evening here for me. It probably is for you as well. So it's not going to be the highest production values. But what are we going to talk about? I'll talk a little bit about this cigar. Oh man, I totally burnt that. Hi Cody, it is late. Going to talk a little bit about singing psalms and hymns in the house. Pardon me, it's a request. That's pretty robust. That's what I did. So ugly. I want to read a C.S. Lewis poem to you guys. One of my favorites of his. It's a Christmas poem. And just do a little bit chit chat. So, please feel very welcome to comment. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to see and interact with your comment, but I'll do my very best. So a cool thing about having grown-up students is that they can give you grown-up gifts. So this I actually got, it's empty, the bottle's empty now. That's a couple weeks ago. Not from a student, strictly speaking, but from a conversation partner. I have a conversation partner in Russia. I just started dabbling in Russian. And I saw him in Florida. He brought me this vodka. I have to admit, best vodka I'd ever had. I don't love vodka. You know, I think one of the great standards of good vodka is that it doesn't taste like anything, so that's a super bummer, you know. There are actually a little notes of vanilla happening in the thing. Anyway, so I don't know what any of this means, but I can more or less read it. My accent is awful. I'm not going to read it all. I will tell you, though, that this word, sok, means juice. So this vodka is somehow some kind of juice. Maybe like vodka is aquavit in Sweden, the water of life. Maybe it's the juice of life. I don't know. And then yesterday, I was actually out with a student in downtown Greer. and some other students of mine came by, hoping to find me. I was out. But they brought me a turkey, a frozen turkey. One of them had gotten a BMW. And this. These students are from Mexico. Jose Cuervo Especial. So that's what I'm drinking tonight. I had it in the freezer. There we go. Got my stogie, got my liquor, ready to roll. So, this is a very cool book. Poems by C.S. Lewis. Actually, so I really did not intend to do this, but if you see the cover of this particular edition, it's an angel, a unicorn, Jupiter, St. George's Cross. All right, so I actually wrote a poem about the cover of this book. And it's in this book. I'm super proud of how I worked into this plug. I'm going to make this plug anyway. So this is my collection of poetry. Well Met, Poems of Companionship. I encourage you to buy it on Amazon. It would make a great Christmas gift. Hey Wade. Hi Nels. But it actually has a poem in there about the cover of the book I'm about to read. So I am obliged to read it to you. All right, so I'll hold up the cover. Poems by C.S. Lewis. My poem is called Artistic Appropriation, in homage to the cover of C.S. Lewis's Poems, 1992, Harcourt, Brace and Company. The angel bore St. George's Cross and stood midst clouds on cherubs' heads. To remind them all of ocean's loss, old Jove sailed by the moon's dry beds. And when the mighty angel knew the horse's myth begetting corn, he spread his wings, shine every hue, a blast he blew upon his horn. For all this thank we Photoshop. So I've had this book for a while, this particular edition. And it's full of beautiful poetry. Again, the poems of C.S. Lewis. The short poetry. There's a separate edition of his epic poetry. Some really beautiful poems. Some beautiful poems about the things poets write about. All poets write about. Love, life, loss. But there are some poems that are particularly moving, I think, to the Christian on his Christian walk. All right. Since I'm not holding two objects, I'll be able to take this thing out of my mouth for this reading. All right, so this is C.S. Lewis. It's called The Turn of the Tide, and it's a Christmas poem. Breathless was the air over Bethlehem. Black and bare were the fields, hard as granite the clods. Hedges stiff with ice, the sedge and the vice of the pool like pointed iron rods. And the deathly stillness spread from Bethlehem. It was shed wider each moment on the land. Through rampart and wall into camp and into hall stole the hush. All tongues were at a stand. At the procurator's feast the jocular freedman ceased his story and gaped. All were glum. Travelers at their beer in a tavern turned to hear the landlord. Their oracle was dumb. But the silence flowed forth to the islands in the north and smoothed the unquiet river bars and leveled out the waves from the reveling and paved the sea with cold reflected stars. Where the Caesar on Palatine sat at ease to sign, without anger, signatures of death, there stole into his room, and on his soul a gloom, and his pen faltered, and his breath. Then to Carthage and the Gauls, past Parthia and the falls of Nile and Mount Amara it crept. The romp and war of beast and swamp and jungle ceased. The forest grew still, as though it slept. So it ran about the girth of the planet. From the earth a signal, a warning went out, and away behind the air her neighbors were aware of change. They were troubled with a doubt. Salamanders in the sun that brandish as they run, tails like the Americas in size, were stunned by it and dazed. Wondering they gazed up at earth, misgiving in their eyes. In houses and signs, Ouziarchs divine grew pale and questioned what it meant. Great galactal lords stood back to back with swords half drawn, awaiting the event. And a whisper among them passed, "Is this perhaps the last of our story and the glories of our crown? The entropy worked out, the central redoubt abandoned, the world spring running down?" Then they could speak no more. Weakness overbore even them. They were as flies in a web, in their lethargy stone dumb. The death had almost come. The tide lay motionless at ebb. Like a stab at that moment, over crab and bowman, over maiden and lion came the shock of returning life, the start and burning pang at heart, setting galaxies to tingle and rock. And the lords dared to breathe, and swords were sheathed, and a rustling, a relaxing began. With a rumor and noise of the resuming of joys, on the nerves of the universe it ran. Then pulsing into space with delicate dulcet pace came a music infinitely small and clear, but it swelled and drew nearer and held all worlds in the sharpness of its call. And now divinely deep and louder, with a sweep and quiver of inebriating sound, the vibrant dithyramb shook Libra, and the ram, the brains of Aquarius, spun round. Such a note as neither throne nor potentate had known since the word first founded the abyss. But this time it was changed in a mystery, estranged, a paradox, an ambiguous bliss. Heaven danced to it and burned. Such answer was returned to the hush, the favette, the fear that earth had sent out. Revel, mirth, and shout descended to her, sphere below sphere. Saturn laughed and lost his latter age's frost. His beard Niagara-like unfroze. Monsters in the sun rejoiced. The inconstant one, the unwedded moon, forgot her woes. A shiver of rebirth and deliverance on the earth went gliding. Her bonds were released. Into broken light a breeze rippled and woke the seas, and the forest it startled every beast. Capropods felt a dance from Taproband to France, leprechauns from down to Labrador. In his green Asian dell the phoenix from his shell burst forth, and was the phoenix once more. So death lay in a rest, but at Bethlehem the blessed, nothing greater could be heard than a dry wind in the thorn, the cry of the one newborn, and cattle in stall as they stirred. Why do I love that poem so much? Because it's so cosmic. Cosmic, y'all. The coming of the Lord Jesus, God incarnate, to a modest family in a modest province at a modest time. His cosmic significance changes the world. Kings and galactal lords dare not breathe. And then when they see that it is he, they can breathe again. They can relax. All good people clap their hands. Cheers. I'm looking forward to reading that one to the kids this year. I didn't read it last year. And with the disruption of our normal schedule, sort of slipped my mind. Usually what happens is I see the volume on my bookshelf at some time during Advent, remember. This Sunday I'll make a point to do that. So speaking of things that are beautiful and musical, I'm looking here without an ashtray. This is another beautiful musical thing. And I have ash to ash. Maybe this Russian bottle is a thing to ash into. Thanks, reveal. It's not going to be easy. Oh. So speaking of beautiful and musical things, and the family, right? I'll be reading this poem to my family. Wade Wells, who I think might be on right now, a frequent viewer, asked, so I put out a video recently, which I mentioned I'd be interested in some requests for topics. And one of them was his question, which was about singing hymns and psalms, especially in a family context. Let me actually go to his comment here. I'd love to hear you talk about your family singing hymns and psalms, the reason for doing it, etc. I've been interested in doing that with my family, but don't really know how to introduce it. Now, of course, the first thing I would say in response to that comment to Wade would be just knowing your situation. It's very different when you're a son, right? As opposed to being a father. So being married, being the head of your own household, obviously you get to make the decisions that shape the culture of your family. And being aware that everything you decide has meaning and direction is a great first step. Which makes your question so great. As far as introducing it to your family, I think that would be more up to you since you're on the ground down there. But what do we do? Well, I'll start by saying we don't do as much as I'd like to do. One of my other viewers asked me to do a video about time management. And I think I'm going to do it. But with the very strong caveat that I am not particularly good at managing my time. So we don't sing as much as we'd like. But it's actually because of knowing that I think the most important thing that we've done in our family is that we always sing at every meal as part of our prayers. We haven't introduced anything new in a while, but it's usually stuff that we know by heart. And we'll often repeat them, right? And go through times of months in a row where it's a certain 2 or 3 that we do. So that means that we're singing together 2 or 3 times in a day, which is pretty awesome. Particularly given that my family is not a musical family. Neither Kimberly nor I are particularly gifted. We often choose service music for those for meal stuff. So things like the doxology, the Lord's Prayer sung, like the Gloria Patri, like the Gloria in Excelsis. Glory be to God on high, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. Yeah, so Wade is making the comment now about catechisms, which are a big deal. My favorite catechism might be the Heidelberg. There's a really good children's catechism done by a man named Rich Lusk, Lusk, which is worth searching for online. And we always sing at our meals when we have guests too. We try to have guests a lot, regardless of who it is. So it's just, that's part of our family culture. You're in a house, we're going to sing. And if we don't think that people know that song, like if we think they know the doxology, we'll sing the doxology. If we don't think they know any of them, we might sing something else. But we'll explicitly say, if you don't know it, you can raise your hands with us or simply listen in. And then we sing. That's what we do. One of the really cool things about knowing service music, type music, as opposed to just hymns, is that they often are much shorter, or even if they're longer, they're like single pieces of music. So you remember the whole thing, as opposed to remembering several verses, which makes them easier to do in sort of a public setting, or to do more quickly without the production of pulling out the hymnals and that sort of thing. I think it's really important also that in any sort of Christian context, in the context of any church, there also be a lot of singing. And, in a context like that, where you don't have to pull out the hymnals. So whether it's through praise choruses or whatever, but people are often so afraid to sing a cappella, which just shouldn't be the case. And if you could hear us sing, we are not beautiful singers, very, very far from it. But it's important just to kind of incorporate that. That's pretty much all we do. We might have special events within the family, like for Advent or for Christmas or for Easter, where we sing a bunch of songs. It's really about the meals. We do not have a family worship service, which is a conscious decision. But as I said, we're not the best time managers. So, that plays a part into our decision making. We do have family prayer meetings. So that's part of our lives, and we sing during those as well. So I hope that answers your question, Wade, and I hope it's informative to others. So let me see if I have a Book of Common Prayer within arm's reach. I do not. Yeah, so the Book of Common Prayer has a bunch of great service music and chants. Yeah, both Book of Common Prayers and some Lutheran hymnals I have are in the living room. Well, here we go. So here's an older Lutheran hymnal, my favorite edition, from 1940. It has a lot of service music. Epiphany, Lent. I think of the Sabbath prayer song and Fiddler on the Roof when I imagine the singing. That's cool. That, I think, would be a good goal. Passion Tide. Because Lutherans are quite liturgical, and especially we're then. Easter, Rogation, Saints' Days and Holy Days. And then they have a bunch of hymns, general hymns for those times, but also service music. And then something that's very good, canticles. And these canticles are plain song chants. And they usually have Latin names, even for Lutherans and Presbyterians and Anglicans. Benedictus est Domine, blessed art thou, Lord. Jubilate Deo, be joyful to the Lord. Magnificat. That's Mary's prayer. My soul doth magnify the Lord, and my spirit doth rejoice in God my Saviour. For he hath regarded the low estate of his bondservant, etc., etc. And then they're also, somewhere in here, I think maybe at the beginning, I think this is the one that has all these psalm chants. Or maybe that's just in the Book Common Prayer. Service music, canticles. Yeah, so no psalm chants in this one, alas. But there are lots of good chant books. And I have to say that I enjoy the Anglican tradition of plain song the most, by far. Very easy to sing. They're for people, you know, which is very cool. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys being here, listening to the poem. Oh, you know, I never did review the cigar, which is medium to medium heavy, tiny bit of spice, like a black pepper in the back, kind of a vinous thing happening in the front. The pepper is mild, but really, really lingers, which is very pleasant. And that's it. Well, great smoke and a great size, because it fits in my big, huge honkin' cigar holder. All right, guys. The peace of Christ be upon you. I look forward to doing more videos and talking to you guys soon. Peace.